Kamran Bokhari is a founding director at the Center for Global Policy. He leads the Governance in Muslim-Majority States program and joins me now from Toronto. So, Kamran, what do you think is the biggest concern about current conditions in Kashmir with accusations of beatings and other violent behavior?
Well, since there's an information blackout and there's not a whole lot of verification going on, it's this kind of climate where all these kind of reports, to the extent that they're true or exaggerated or outright false, this disinformation, misinformation campaign begins to pick up steam. And once that happens, it shapes perceptions and it could lead to further unrest and violence and, of course, cross-border tensions and exchanges of gunfire between the Pakistani and the Indian military.
I mean, we are hearing some disturbing words. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan warns of a genocide, the term he used, against Muslims. What do you think could be a tipping point for military engagement here?
I think that this is a sort of a simplistic, if you will, pathway that is being described, at least in simplistic terms, by those who are saying, well, look, the situation in Indian-administered Kashmir could lead to conflict between India and Pakistan. I'm not disagreeing with that. My only question is, we need to unpack that. What is that process? I think that what we have is the more there is, if you will, repression by Indian authorities on Kashmiris on their side of the border, the more the Pakistanis, the state, particularly the military of that country that controls the Kashmir policy, comes under a lot of pressure to do something. And that's where I think we can expect some clashes. But I'm not ready to say that this is going to lead to an all-out war, because India and Pakistan have been clashing for decades in low-intensity manner, and we've not seen things get out of hand. And I'm not seeing any reason why we would see a break in that pattern.
So is this just basically war of words that we're hearing then?
I think the Pakistanis are upping the ante because they feel the pressure to do something domestically, particularly Prime Minister Imran Khan, who's facing a very difficult economic situation. And I think that he's already under a lot of pressure to turn things around. And now with the Kashmir issue, that's also shaping perceptions at home. And he needs to make sure that he is politically secure, and therefore he's engaging in hyperbole of genocide and all of that. I think that that's more political rhetoric. It assumes that the Indians are irrational and they will do something like that. It serves a political audience and a political purpose, but I think it's not where things will go. But nonetheless, it is this kind of rhetoric and propaganda that leads to further escalation.
And on the Indian side, what do you make of what is happening there and Narendra Modi? This is an issue that he campaigned on in his most recent election. But what's the strategy from the Indian point of view?
Well, we have to assume that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, his calculus was that whatever backlash there will be from eliminating Kashmir's special status could be containable. I mean, otherwise, if his government thought that this could be a massive blowback, then they would not have engaged in this. So the cost and benefit analysis is something we need to keep in mind. Now, that said, there can always be miscalculations. And the key thing for the Indian government is, when they start to ease restrictions, do they see a spike in unrest proportionally? And then, of course, if they can't keep a state of emergency indefinitely, and the longer they keep it, the more it creates unrest. It becomes almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, that where you want to contain the unrest, but if you keep the situation going, you're inadvertently leading to the circumstances you're trying to avoid. So the biggest challenge for the Indians is, how do they bring normalcy to their side of Kashmir?
All right, Kamran Bokhari, thank you so much for joining us from Toronto.